Welcome to the 210 Podcast, Catalytic Conversations with your host, Nathan Buck. How have leadership blind spots and legacy led to empty churches? The conversation starts now.
I think that now we're actually dealing with museums of faith.
There's a group that I'm a part of, or I'm connected to, called Rising Sun, and they work with for-profit, nonprofit ministries and businesses, marketplace, everything. And they sent out a thing about leadership and leadership blind spots, and they said this. So I'm just going to read it to you. Someone I deeply respect spoke some hard truth to me and pointed out areas that I've neglected. Ouch.
Hurts.
Those moments never feel good, but that's the thing about our blind spots. It's not a question of whether we have them, but whether we're willing to face them. In the past few weeks, I've seen this come up with several leaders that I work with. A leader who can't see how their, quote, high standards, which really are their expectations more than standards, are burning out their team. A leader who's convinced that their communication is clear, but their team is constantly guessing at what the priorities are. A leader who keeps saying, I trust my team, but still wants to approve every decision that's made. And, we could go on. That, we have within the church and within nonprofit ministries specifically, we see leaders who feel like the only way the organization is going to move forward is if we put some sort of a formula, the next program, if I somehow take control. And they think that because I'm hired as this leader, I have to push it, right? We have boards and elderships that say, well, we've hired a pastor to do ministry. We've hired a pastor to tell us where to go. And the reality is no human should be telling the church where to go, right? It should be the Holy Spirit. It should be God leading the church that way. We have leaders in the church who think that what they do in ministry is separate from their personal life, is separate from who they are when they're behind closed doors. And it leads to this duality of this, this upfront personality, but this disastrous personal life that's riddled with, guilt or porn or trauma or whatever, right? Like all of that. So and the list goes on and on and on with where our blind spots are. It boils down to three areas: appetite, approval, or ambition. Those are the three drifts that every person has. And we have to know what our primary area of drift is. And oftentimes, two of them will be working in coordination with each other. When we're under a lot of stress and we're really under it, all three could be in operation. But approval is to be enough. Appetite is to have enough. And ambition is to do enough, right? And you think about have enough, be enough, and do enough. Those things drive so many leaders right through their blind spots and destroy ministries, destroy leaders, destroy communities. I remember early on in our journey, one of the things that you and I said, and it was sort of a commitment we made to each other as we watched older leaders out ahead of us. We saw so many older leaders hanging on to their leadership in the name of legacy. And their legacy, right? Not Christ's legacy, but their legacy. And then they would hang on to the steering wheel so long and white knuckle it that the generation right next to them, their own generation, leaders in their own generation, leaders in the next generation would all be pushed aside, and they would jump to the grandchildren. And they would try to hand the grandchildren not an opportunity to go where God was calling them, but try to hand them, hey, do this thing that I've been doing. Here, you can take the wheel because I just can't hold on to the wheel anymore. I can't drive. I want you to continue my legacy.
Sure. Immediately, it takes me back to the late 1990s, early 2000s, when there was a big movement in the church about the Joshua generation rising up, which is actually us. And how it forced us to do kind of like our own thing, so to speak, and be the pioneers. And out of that came the emergent church and the missional. Came out of that. Some of it failed. Some of it actually left some less some good things in its
Yeah.
wake, pieces we can implement now. Um, I think that now we're actually dealing with museums of faith,
Hmm.
which breaks my heart to say. And that's actually why a lot of these churches have just shuttered up.
What do you mean when you say museums of faith?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when you have a strong, anointed, powerful, trained leader, and the expectations surrounding him or her are such that they can do it by themselves.
Mhm.
You're the tip of our spear. We will just follow you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what happens is development fails generationally, and you
Mhm.
actually become a single generational church.
Mhm.
And
That's
it's up
interesting.
to the grandkids, kind of like you just said, to come in and sell more tickets to come see the museum
Hmm.
that they have
Yeah.
built. That's actually why it's failed. So um, nepotism also being a danger here for
Hmm.
sure, where the family run business.
Oh
So you
yeah.
actually
Okay.
have the son coming in at like age 60,
Hmm.
and because dad held on for a little bit too long,
Yeah.
and I, I think that the support structure around the church is largely to be held accountable for that, because you tend to not challenge the way that you would if it was not that.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thought. Can I jump in there?
Please, yeah,
So it's a really interesting thought because that kind of comes alongside. I don't know that there are very few ministries that I've encountered that are intentionally, to use your word, nepotistic, right?
sure,
Right. And there's a challenge there with we want to say that the local church, the local community is a family, right? We want to
right,
live and share life as a family. And so that's a hard thing to really sort through. But I think that comes alongside of the other thing that you said with museums of faith, that many of us have never understood or experienced anything other than the institutional programmatic church, right? The
oh, yeah,
church, the legacy church as it is not what it started as. Every single church that exists today
yeah,
was once just a group of friends on mission, right?
absolutely
They were just a
true.
group of friends who said, "We love Jesus and we want other people to love Jesus. How do we gather in a
Mhm.
way that expresses who we are and how we value God and how God has led us to celebrate him
Yeah,
and do that in community and share life together?" It started as that, and then it became well-intentioned processes and organizational things to say, well,
sure.
how do we add more people to that? How do we make sure that everybody knows when we're gathering? How do
Right,
we make sure that everybody knows how to participate in
yeah,
what we're doing when we gather? And
yeah,
all of those well-intentioned things eventually became tradition, and then
yeah,
it went from tradition to sacred,
yeah. That's
right?
it.
And once it became sacred, now it's to be preserved forever and ever, as if that is what Jesus and the disciples did. And and the hard part is we ourselves may
Mhm.
not have ever experienced what it was to be friends on mission. And now we're in
That's
a
it.
season where all of those traditions and all of those things we've
Yeah,
structured, they're not connecting with people anymore. We don't understand why. And God's
that's
saying, I want you to go back to being friends on mission. Like, what does it mean to be who I've called you to be, where you live, work, and play, and build those relationships again with people?